Okay, so we have a few students. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our second info session. So, for the students who are here with us, kindly go to the chat box and write your name and the name of your law clinic so that we know the number of law clinics that are present already. And then would still give a few minutes. I don't know why this is unlike them, but we'll just give 5 more minutes to the other law clinics, and then it's 10 minutes past 2 p.m. would begin. So once again, welcome to the clinics that are already here. Again, kindly register your attendance in the chat box so that we can keep track of the law clinics that are present. Thank you. Okay, it's exactly 10 minutes past 2, so we're just going to begin. And so for the remaining law clinics, they can always catch up on the YouTube page because the info sessions are recorded, uploaded on the YouTube page. So once again, thank you so much for joining today's info session. Once again, my name is Phoebe John, although I'm sure that most of us are familiar with my name by now, you know, the emails and email exchange and everything. So at the last info session, talked about the competition. We discussed the various stages of the competition and the expected from the students at each stage of the competition. So today we'll just be sharing a few pointers and ideas on how the students can bring their content to life. Um, so on this call, we have Amy Wallace. So I'm sure all the clinics that are registered and are on this call were at the info session, but just a brief intro again. Amy is the advisor of our law school programs at Street Law Inc. And she'll be sharing a few ideas with you on, tips that can help you as you prepare your content for the competition. We also have on the call, let me confirm very quickly. Yes, we also have on the call Mr. Emmanuel Jackson. He's the lead strategist at Plain Array Technologies. So Mr. Jackson is currently developing a set of tutorial videos to help the students with the process of their content development. And at the last info session, he made a presentation where he shared very helpful tips with the students on how to set goals for the competition, how to begin putting their content together, how to leverage the different social media platforms to promote their content and ensure that their content reaches a wider audience for the competition. So I'm going to share a few words, a few tips with us, and then Amy as well will share her ideas, and then we'll go into the question and answer session proper, and then would also at that point as well we can have feedbacks from people who may want to make a few comments and all. So once again, for the law clinics who joined in late, kindly register your law clinics attendance in the chat box. Type in your name and the name of the law clinic that you're from so that we are able to track the number of law clinics that were on ground for this info session. Okay, so moving on, like I said, at the last info session, we talked extensively about what the VSLC competition is and the different stages. So today I'm just going to share a few ideas of prepping from the beginning for your content and just general tips on how to go about participating. So the first thing that I would advise that the students do or that the law clinics do when it comes to this competition is understand the theme first of all. So for each year there is a theme, and for the law clinics who have participated in our NCC competitions, that is the National Client Interviewing and Counseling Skills competition that happen annually, you know that we have a topic. Each year has a designated topic. And so this year we are focusing on freedom, the law and freedom of expression online for this maiden edition of the Virtual StreetLaw Competition. So my advice would be understand the theme, go on the VSLC website, read up everything that is available on the website on the theme of the competition, and then once you have understood the theme of the competition and what NULAI is expecting from you as a law clinic, then you can now go further and then research the laws. Research the laws. What are the laws in Nigeria on freedom of expression? What are the policies on freedom of expression in Nigeria? And once you have been able to do that, then the next thing that you do is break those laws down. Break those laws down into simple, easy language that a layman can understand, a non-lawyer can understand. And then once you have done that, then you now decide who is your audience, who do you want to speak to on this issue of the rights to freedom of expression online. So once you have decided that, then you can now begin to plan your video content and then start scripting. So you can now decide, okay, um, I'm going to begin with a hook, or perhaps if you're doing a skit, you can begin with a scene that captures people's attention. If you're doing like a talk show, you can begin with a question that captures people's attention on that particular area, and particularly the audience that you're trying to address. So yes, we have told you that the content that you're creating is primarily for Nigerian audience. So you'll be focusing on Nigerian laws, but you can still decide to focus specifically on a target audience. So, for instance, you can choose to speak to content creators, because these days there has been a huge rise of content creators, and yes, and other similar um, areas that people have been exploring lately. So you can choose to, make your video address that, and then you script, you do your hook or your opening scene to grab attention. Then you make sure also that you highlight key provisions of Nigerian law that address it. Like I said, you do your research on laws and policies, and then you translate it, and then you script, and then you film. And then for the filming, you don't really need fancy equipment. You can get one of your team members who has a very good camera. Most smartphones these days come with um, you know, good camera quality, especially iPhone. Those are a lot of the youth population in Nigeria use iPhones. So you can get someone in the law clinic who has a good camera on the phone, and then you decide on location where you want to shoot your content. Preferably look for somewhere where there isn't a lot of noise. Plan that and then record your videos. You can choose to record your videos in like short clips, and then thereafter you edit your video, and you can also, then something else that I had in mind to mention is, once you have done your script, before you move on to start filming, you can have other members of the team, maybe people who didn't play like key roles in the research process, or yeah, people who were not involved in the research process or didn't take key research process. You can have them review it and give you their feedback on what they think about the script that you've written so far. Does it make sense? Do they think it's interesting enough? Does it meet with the criteria that the competition has outlined before you then go on to film? So that prevents a lot of wasted efforts. Can easily change whatever needs to be changed before you go on to film and then edit. Then another thing that I would really encourage students to do is do a lot of research. Your research does not just end at the point where you're researching the theme of the competition and the laws that apply to the theme of the competition. Your research should continue up until your videos are submitted. So For instance, in the area of content creation, you can, look up there are a lot of creators now who share content creation tips, filming and editing tips and tricks. Check them out. Go on YouTube. There are a plethora of videos that can teach you how to set up your camera, set up your lighting, and shoot to get the best video, what angle to shoot for a YouTube video, all of those things. So you go online and you check them out, and yes, take advantage of resources like that and put your video together. You know, start editing, then you can make your submissions. So um and then also another thing that I would like to share with us before Amy speaks to us is the security guidelines. So be sure to also read the content security guidelines that are on the website. I talked about those guidelines at the last info session. So if you go on the website, you can also look up the content security guidelines. If you're including someone in your video who is not a member of your law clinic, who is not part of your team for the content submission that you're doing, ensure that you have their consent, ensure that the information that you're going to be sharing in your videos are verifiable information, ensure that the images, whatever images you're using, music, and other things that you're using in your video are things that you have the license to use, or there are resources that you got from um, free resource platforms, and not resources that you need to obtain permission to use, or that may get your video taken down for failure to obtain the necessary permissions. So I wanted to highlight those things quickly before we went further. So yes, another tip I would like to share is at the stage where your videos have also been, once your videos have been submitted and NULAI has uploaded the videos on the YouTube channel and shared the links with you, you have a lot of work to do at this stage. The metrics are 3,000 likes, 5,000 views, and 100 relevant comments. So you have to keep these things in mind. You need to do a lot of work at this stage. Promote your content widely at this stage on your clinic's social media platforms. Create teaser clips from the videos, from the main videos, and upload on clinic handles. You can celebrate milestones. You can celebrate your milestones publicly. For instance, you can say, "Oh, thank you, everyone. We hit 500 views on our videos," because those are the things that you can see when you go on your video, when you go to when you go to where your video is on the NULAI YouTube channel. So you can keep track of those things, and build the momentum and help to drive up the numbers, while also ensuring that you're making impact, because we have been emphasizing from the beginning, it's not just about the numbers. We know that with virtual competitions, we know that with virtual programs, there is a very high likelihood for people to be carried away by the numbers. But it goes beyond the numbers. We want to see real impact. We want to see that people are learning things, and not just learning things, that they have, they know how to use that information that you've given them. Not just that they know that they have this right, but how do they speak up if these rights are violated? Where do they get help if this rights are infringed upon. So keep that in mind as you prepare. So from my end, that's all. So I would give the floor to Amy now to share a few words and yeah, her ideas with you all, and then would open the floor up for the questions and answer feedbacks. So, Amy, the floor.
Thank you, Phoebe. So once again, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your program. I'm really excited to see your social media campaigns start to progress. I did prepare some slides, but mostly I would love for this to be a conversation about, what people are thinking, what different clinics are thinking. And I know Phoebe has asked for anyone who joins to put your name and the name of your law clinic in the chat so we can keep track of who is attending. I need permission to share, Phoebe.
Mrs. O. So, Mrs. O will give permission to share. Are you able to share your screen now?
Yeah, it looks like I might be able to share now.
Okay. Great. So most of what I wanted to talk with you all about today are mostly questions. So a lot of what I want to talk about are just questions you all should be discussing in your groups, what you should be thinking about. And this was something that I teed up in our first information session, which was about this concept of backwards design, is that really thinking about where you want the people who are watching your videos or, consuming your content to sort of end up at the end, and to think about that as the goal before you start doing anything else. Because sometimes we get caught up in, oh, this will be funny, or this would be entertaining. And that's part of what you need to do as well, because, you have to hit those milestones. But it's really important to think about what's the purpose behind what we're doing here. At the end of the day, it's, legal education. And so we have to keep our eye on that ball the whole time. And I think the best way to do that is to start sort of at the end. And I talked a lot about that in our first session, but I wanted to sort of drill down a little bit on those questions. And so I'll go through them, but then I would love to circle back and start to have conversations with the individual clinics and to see where you all are at, and if you've sort of had these conversations yet in your groups at your clinics in terms of what you're thinking about. So these are the 4 questions that I started with in our first session. Who am I working with in terms of, who are we designing this program for? What are the needs of that community? And then thinking about sort of what information do I want them to know? And what skills do I want them to have? What do I want them to be able to do? And, really thinking about those questions as your goalpost before you start your program. And then once you've got all that figured out, then you can think about being funny, and then you can think about sort of how you're going to catch people's attention. But the core of the project, I think, needs to be the legal education piece. So the first question, sort of, who am I working with? And Phoebe talked a little bit about that in terms of, some good suggestions on some communities that might benefit from this freedom of expression information. But so how do we decide who to target? Who do we think will be most responsive to this type of campaign? Where is it being posted? What types of people, what groups of people are most likely to encounter this information that we're posting? And sort of that tension between who's most likely to see it and who needs it the most. So thinking about that. And I don't have answers for these questions, but these are really questions for you all to think about. And then next, what are the needs of that community? So we're focusing particularly on freedom of expression. But so how do we know, as law students and law professors, we pick a community,
how do we know what are the legal issues related to freedom of expression that they're facing? How do we figure that out? Do we reach out to community groups? Do we go into the community and ask people, what the issues are that they're dealing with? Sort of having a strategy to figure out not what we think their problems are, but finding out really from that community what the problems that they're facing. And sometimes we can get that from, news sources and things like that, problems that we hear about in the community. But oftentimes finding out from those community members themselves, what do they need to know? Like, what do they want? And then sort of figuring out on each topic, what do they already know? What sort of is their level of understanding on these topics, and what else do they need to know? And then this is, I'm teeing off of something that Phoebe put in the guidelines, which I don't know if they're up yet, but if not, they will be very soon. And this goes back to the idea of backwards planning, is thinking about outcomes and thinking about, where do we want to be, and designing outcomes that are thinking about what exactly do you want to accomplish? This idea of SMART outcomes. How will you know when you've achieved it? Is it realistic, given not only their time and resources, but particularly the limitations and the freedom that doing this online gives you, because it's different. And again, that's highlighted in the materials that I know Phoebe's been working really hard on, are that there's some real advantages to doing this in a virtual context in terms of reaching a broader audience, but there are some limitations in terms of you not being able to have this sort of one-on-one with individuals. So thinking about, these goals, this backwards design that we're thinking about, is what we want to accomplish in terms of teaching people things and developing their skills. Is it achievable? And then sort of the other parts of this concept of SMART is relevant and time bound. So specific, are our goals specific? Are they measurable? Are they achievable? Are they relevant? That sort of was what I was talking about at the beginning, was, sometimes we can come up with an idea that's funny, but is it really accomplishing what we want it to accomplish in terms of teaching people what we want them to learn? Is it possible to sort of get this done in our time frame? So I always teach my students about this idea of SMART outcomes, and so I really liked that Phoebe had put that in the materials as well. And then this last one, and again, I think I highlighted this in the first session, that this is a little bit tricky, this concept of skills. And I think Phoebe just talked about that a little bit a minute ago. It's not, it may not be enough, and you all decide in your groups what you want to do, but it may not be enough to just give people information. You might want them to be able to develop the skills to know what to do with that. And some questions I put on here for us to think about in terms of the skill piece of this is, how can community members develop skills when you're not really interacting with them in an in-person way? And, really thinking about, we may have taught people what their rights are, but do they need skills to exercise those rights? Is it the question of showing them how to, work an online form for the government, that will, they can file a complaint? I'm just throwing an example out there, but something about not just like, here are your rights and when they are violated, but what can you do then to fix that? Is there something that you can do? Is there certain documentation you need to get? Is there a record you need to make? Something that they need to do that's an actual tangible thing. And something I wanted to throw out there, because I don't know what the rule is in Nigeria, sort of what's the line between teaching people to exercise their rights and showing them where that form is online, or how to document perhaps an infringement of those rights, and practicing law. We have very strict rules here that people who are law students in particular, who are conducting public legal education, are not permitted to practice law. And they have to be very careful not to cross that line, because there are penalties for law students, what we call the unauthorized practice of law. And so I throw that out there because I don't know what the rules are in Nigeria, but it's always something that I'm mindful to mention to my students, is that we are providing information. We are not solving anyone's actual legal problem, because that would be the practice of law. And that's something different. So I tee that up only because I don't know what your rules are, and just something to be mindful of is that you don't want to be engaging with the public in terms of getting specific problems from them in comments or things like that, and giving them specific advice, if this is also something that's not permitted in Nigeria the same way that it isn't permitted for us. So that's just my contact information. So a lot of questions that I've thrown out for everybody. But I would love to sort of go back to the beginning questions and sort of get a sense from the groups if you've started to think about some of these questions. And I don't know, Phoebe, you tell me, because I know that Emmanuel is going to do some tips also. So if you would like Emmanuel to speak, and then we can start sharing out ideas. But I would love to know if the groups have already started to think about sort of the answers to some of those questions that I highlighted in terms of who are you going to work with and what legal issues do we think are an issue for them?
Yeah, I think you can go ahead because at the last info session, Mr. Emmanuel already spoke to them on developing their content. So he's just here this afternoon, just in case the students have specific questions on that area so that I can address them. So please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So I would love to hear from the groups in terms of, have you started to think about who is your audience? And feel free, anyone, or Phoebe, if you want to call on people, but I'm also taking notes of the different groups that are here as they're as they're posting them. But has anyone met as a group and started to think about, who are you going to be targeting with your campaign? Well, why don't we start with, it looks like as I said, I was taking notes. It looks like we have like 5 or 6 different law clinics here. Could we get a representative from each of the law clinics to sort of discuss where you're at? And if you're at the beginning, that's okay too. But if you wanted to share sort of what you were thinking and whether you've had any sort of meetings, that would be great. I don't know if anyone wants to unmute and share.
All right. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I am Gaddafi from Ahmadu Bello University Law Clinic. Yes, I thought of engaging the indigent people around my locality to inform them of how they can access free legal aid services from our own law clinics. Even though the practice here in Nigeria too is that we mostly assist lawyers.
Hello, Gaddafi.
Yeah, I lost him too.
Yeah. Okay. Before he comes back on, I wanted to talk about that what he was just about to talk about on the line between public legal education and practicing the law. So in Nigeria here, Nigerian law students don't have the license to practice. They cannot practice until they have completed their legal education and have called to the bar. So, but then we also have similar rules here. So the rules of professional conduct in Nigeria does not allow a lawyer to go online on any media platform and then provide specific solutions to people's problems. So you can like give general pointers, but you can't give specific solutions to people's problems. So it's kind of similar.
I suspected it would be. I mean, it makes sense, I think. Yeah, so that's good to know.
Great. So
I think
just okay.
Hello, yes, I experienced a network glitch and I'm back. Yes, like I was saying, I said the only thing we are not allowed to do is to represent them in court, but we can always help them to first, we can mediate their own disputes. Like if issues arise, like let's say if it's a landlord-tenant issue, we can always mediate that at the law clinic. So we can virtually solve their issues, which is a form of access to justice too. We can solve their issues in the law clinic, and it's not possible. We have our amicus curiae, we have lawyers that we assist, and then lawyers that work pro bono for free. They represent clients in court for free, and then they help them attain access to justice. So what we will enlighten them on is that they always have options. They must, if they feel they don't have the resources to hire the services of a lawyer, they can always approach us. They should not keep quiet and sleep on their rights. They can always approach us, and their matters will be solved. So this issue of disputes that are not resolved, or disputes that are being resolved forcefully by forgiveness. I mean, it's forcefully because you have nothing to do about it. You feel you have nothing to do about it, so you just sleep on your right. So if someone is stronger than you, or if someone is more powerful than you, you don't have to keep quiet. You always have an option of approaching the law clinic, and then the law clinic will provide solutions for you. And we have been doing that, just that that's our work virtually. We have been doing that through various street lawyering programs. Like it runs once a year. Yes, we go to various markets and then communities around us. And it's a thing of joy for me to say that anytime we have the street lawyering program, we have a number of people who approach the law clinic. We receive a lot of calls, and then we settle matters. Even today, earlier, I settled a landlord-tenant dispute, and which I'm glad to say that all these things happening, it's just that people don't speak up, because all the disputes, they just keep quiet if someone is more powerful than them. But now that we have enlightened them, because we go on street lawyering programs, and then we have our various social media platforms. So the enlightenment works, because now people feel free to approach us with different matters, and we solve their matters. Some of the matters that are beyond our powers, we make sure we then refer them to some of our lecturers, to our coordinators, and they solve the matters for them. But we also, at our own level, we mediate a lot of disputes. They don't even reach the court. We mediate them at our own stage. So enlightening the people around us, the indigents around us, because they are our target, the indigent people, those who don't have the money to hire the services of a lawyer. So that's our plan. We enlighten them more so that we'll have them come to us to settle their own disputes. They should not keep quiet and feel oppressed. So that's our own target, the indigent people around us, around our community.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very similar to how the legal clinics here work. In that once someone has come to the legal clinic and the law students are being supervised by a licensed attorney, then they're able to do more things under close supervision. But in terms of when they're doing legal education in the community, in that circumstance, and certainly online, our students would not be allowed to give specific legal advice, which I think Phoebe said is similar. But in terms of how your legal clinics work, that's very similar also, in terms of solving disputes for people under the supervision of a lawyer. Does any other group, does any other law clinic want to discuss sort of where they are in this process and what they're thinking?
Okay, so I wanted to say that just in case any law clinic is feeling like, oh, I don't want to share my strategy or what it is exactly I'm doing, so another law clinic does not, take my idea and implement it and all of that, that's fine. You can just speak generally on what you're doing right now so that we have an idea. You don't have to give us the complete details and everything. So please feel free to share your ideas.
That's funny. I didn't even think of that. I guess I don't have a devious mind. It didn't occur to me. But yes, you could speak sort of generally if you wanted. I mean, also, if anyone has any questions for me or for Phoebe or for Emmanuel, you know, that's why we're here. We're here to help. Oh, someone has a question. You could put it in the chat or you could unmute, whatever works for you.
Exactly. I was about to say the same thing. So you can put your questions in the chat box just in case you're in an environment where you can't unmute yourself and speak. You can always make use of the chat box. And really, at this point, it's very important that we know where are you now in this process. That also helps us to be able to assist you in a way that we are able to provide the relevant information that you need and not just speaking generally. Okay, so someone said, please, where can I get meetings recording? So I mentioned earlier that each of the input sessions are recorded and uploaded on our YouTube page. So once this meeting is over, we'll go through the video and then upload it. Okay, so someone else in the chat box, like the combination of debate. So, okay. Musa Iliojo says, is it possible to combine two options together for our content, like combining debate and panel or a combination of other options? So yes, like we said, you have a lot of creative license as far as this competition is concerned. So you think about it, how best will you be able to communicate the information that you have? How best would you pass that across that people will be able to understand? So you can do a combination of the different creative approaches. You can decide to have an animation and then have like someone talk at the end of the video, or you can even choose to do like a skit and then have someone address the key issues that the different scenes in this skit spoke to, just to drive home the points a bit, so that in case anybody watched the skit may have missed some things, you can highlight that, and then they'll be able to pick on that. So really, you have a lot of creative license for your content. So feel free to combine whatever approaches work best for you. So I'm back in the chat box. So do we have anyone who wants to drop questions in the chat box? You're welcome, Eliojo. So more questions, feedback, or what areas are you finding challenging, or what don't you understand? You have we had the last info session. I spoke about the different stages of the competition. There are a lot of information on the website as well. And I know that from the student's perspective, when you're doing something new for the first time, it can be a little overwhelming. So don't feel like, oh, if I ask this question, it's going to sound silly, or if I share my perspective on this issue, or if I say this is where I'm at, people are going to laugh, because the truth is, most of the times, all of those things are just in our heads. And when you speak up, you get to find out that, in fact, there are other people who are having the same challenge as you. So please feel free to ask your questions, make your comments and your contributions, please.
I think we have a question.
Okay. You can just unmute yourself and speak, please. Hello, Adam, can you hear me? Um, Adam, Ngada Adam from Unsuk Law Clinic. If you can hear me, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, so while we're waiting for him, Gaddafi is asking 15 minutes is the maximum length. Yes, 15 minutes is the maximum length for the video. And then how can we get the recording of the last info session? So if you're on the email thread, and even if you're not, the
Yeah, can you
recording
hear
of
me now?
the last info session. Yes, we can hear you, but let me just
Okay.
quickly finish
Okay.
and then you can go ahead.
Nice.
So yes, for the recording of the last info session, it's already up on the NULAI YouTube channel, so you can go there and watch the video. And yes, you can even drop comments and questions on the video too, and then we'll be sure to address your questions. Please go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be part of this meeting. It's quite wonderful. Thank you. My comment is a comment actually. Recently, I've been following some, lawyers on social media, particularly TikTok, and some of the information they actually dish out are more like giving legal solutions. I was wondering that if they are giving out this kind of information, then what will be our work? By the time somebody knows exactly what to do, it doesn't make sense for lawyers. Where will they intervene? I was glad when you were talking about the rules in Nigeria that is same as our senior colleague was talking about. I think we need to monitor some of these things, or maybe do more, even among lawyers or law students, so that we don't give out legal solutions just on the air like that. That will be, is detrimental to our profession. That's my comment. So probably Phoebe, you help us to check some of these content creators on social media with particular reference to TikTok. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adam, for your comments. So yes, as we have mentioned in the course of the session, so you cannot go online and give specific legal advice, or let me not say specific legal advice, but rather prefer solutions to specific problems for people. So yes, if those lawyers online are not just giving general legal information, but then they are giving, specific, or they are giving answers to specific challenges or the unique challenges of their audience, then that is wrong. So we have a body that is responsible for the discipline of legal practitioners in Nigeria. So that is usually handled by the Legal Practitioners Disciplinary Committee. Adam, you still have your hand up. So if any other person has comments to make. But yes, before we move on, I want to get your understanding of what enlightenment is. What do you think enlightenment is, and what do you think street law is? Are they the same thing or not? So I want a representative each from the law clinics that are present here to, answer that. So who is going first, or do you want me to call out the names one after the other? And like I mentioned earlier, if you're not able to unmute yourself and speak, you can, make use of the chat box, drop your comments and your answers in the chat box, and then I can read them out loud.
This is why law professors, this is why we call on people, because if we just waited, nobody wants to go first.
I totally understand. I totally understand. Okay, so and I don't well, I don't know. I don't know the what goes through students' minds when they don't want to speak up. But yeah, so we're just going to call on the law clinics one after the other to give. Yeah.
Someone has asked you to repeat the question in the chat. Someone has asked you to repeat the question.
Oh, okay. So I said, what is the difference between enlightenment and street law? Do you think they are the same thing, or do you think enlightenment and street law are not the same thing? So, whichever side you tilt into, what is your reason? Okay. So I'm going to allow Amy to go ahead and just call. You can call people at random.
You're
When
like,
I was
you
in
do
law
it.
school, we used to.
You do it. Okay. I'm gonna mispronounce the names, but that's okay. Well, the first one that signed on was, is it Bayero? How do you
Yes,
pronounce that?
yes. It's Bayero.
Bayero. So let's hear from someone from that clinic on Phoebe's question. I think there might only be one person on the call from that clinic.
All right. Good afternoon. Please, can you confirm you can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Enlightenment and StreetLaw, they are different things. That's my understanding. Because StreetLaw involves going as the term. Based on the term, StreetLaw involves going to the streets, going on the streets, educating, advocating, and kind of campaigning, and enlightening people based on their rights and what they need to do if such rights are violated. That's one side. But enlightenment, they are similar actually, but they are different in the sense that enlightenment can be physically or online or using various platforms, while state law includes only physical format, the one we normally carry out in the clinic. That's my understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Ahmad. Any other person, or we continue with the roll call?
We have a volunteer, Emmanuel.
Okay.
Okay, good day. Confirm you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, Emmanuel.
All right, thank you. So for me, okay, I'm representing Ebonyi State University Law Clinic. So for me, they are not too different, although they are not the same thing. In that, in street law, there is enlightenment, but in virtual enlightenment or the enlightenment, you can't say that street law is in it. So in all street law, enlightenment is subsumed into it. How do I mean? Okay, last year, December, the Epsilon Law Clinic carried out its Amber Alert, where we went to the streets to sensitize the public on on various parts of their rights. We focused on contracts, focused on tenancy law, child rights and other things. And we were having face-to-face, first-hand interactions with the people. So this is what street law entails. But in enlightenment, you could enlighten with various platforms, right? And so you could go online to make a video that is informative, enlightening people about a particular right or thereabout. But in that instance, what you're doing is not street lawyering. You're making creating awareness for the people. So just to conclude, while street law will include enlightenment at all times does not include street lawyering. Thank you so much.
It's interesting
Thank
that you
you.
say that, because as soon as Phoebe asked the question, I was imagining a Venn diagram, and that's sort of where there's overlap, but they're not the same. And it's very similar to how you described that.
Thank you.
So that's 2 of our 5 clinics that we have here. Is there someone from, oh, but some of them may have done an abbreviation. ABU Law Clinic, is that the same as Ahmadu Bello? Is that the same?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so then there's 4. So someone from that clinic, maybe.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abdul Aisha Isa from Ahmadu Bello University. Enlightenment can be said to be like an awareness or more of an insight, which concerns so many things, ideas, and various matters. While street lawyering can be said to be like a state of being, or like an act of volunteering in order to bring the legal education to a community. So basically, enlightenment encompasses all various matters and ideas, while street lawyering is basically to inform the community or the society about the legal education there.
I like that. Thank you. Okay, I think we had at one point we had 3 different representatives from, I'm going to mispronounce this, I'm apologizing right now, Prince Abubakar Law Clinic. I don't know if we still have.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I don't know if you can hear me. My network here is very bad.
We can hear you fine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I think you're going in and out, but yes. You might have to put it in the chat. Because we can hear you, but then your background.
Gift. Okay.
Yes, please, Gift. You can type it in the chat box.
Yes.
Okay, so I noticed that more persons joined in while the meeting was ongoing. So kindly go to the chat box if you haven't already done that. Go to the chat box and register the name of the law clinic. So that way we are able to keep track of the number of law clinics that were present for this info session.
Yes, I noticed
I
that
know.
Adam is from a different law clinic as well. That wasn't on isn't in the chat box, but I just noticed on your name that's a new.
Then I see Amra. So, okay, I think what we can also do is everyone, if you, yes, so just like the last person did, put in your name and the name of your law clinic so that we know, okay, for this representative came from this law clinic, this person came from this law clinic, and so on. Okay. So Gift says the difference between enlightenment and street law is basically the fact that enlightenment is like bringing new legal ideas to life, while street law is making this legal knowledge accessible to people. Okay. Jeffrey from University of Abuja Law Clinic says enlightenment and street law are not the same. Enlightenment is a broader concept which is about gaining general knowledge or awareness, which can both be legal or non-legal. On the other hand, street law is more specific and direct, focused on legal education. It finds practical, fun, and easy to understand. Okay, so basically, street law is a much smaller scope of enlightenment. Okay, okay. Interesting, interesting perspectives. Okay, so thank you so much for the responses, for your responses so far. So I would allow Amy to share her thoughts on those, and then I would also make my own comments as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think you all did a great job distinguishing between the two. When Phoebe first mentioned the question, I had similar ideas to what a lot of you did, in that I think, and this is the part that I've tried to stress about, doing a virtual program, is that I think enlightenment is sharing ideas. And I think of street law as more empowering. Empowering with information, but also skills, but empowering people to take action. Whereas when I immediately think of the word enlightenment, I think of more sort of sharing information and ideas and opening people's minds to things, to new ideas. But I really think about street law as empowering people and really giving that power to the community members to exercise the legal rights that they already have and maybe they didn't know about. But beyond sort of just the information, they didn't really know what to do with it. That was sort of my thought. I don't know if you had anything you wanted to add, Phoebe.
Okay, so I was going to say the same thing, but probably in different words. So yes, I appreciate that the students were able to share their perspectives and their understanding of enlightenment and street law. So as much as enlightenment, there is areas of overlap between enlightenment and street law. They are not the same. And like someone noted in the chat box, I think that is Jeffrey from University of Abuja, enlightenment is much more broader. And then with street law, yes, street law has an element of enlightenment, but like Amy just pointed out, it goes beyond just enlightening people about what their rights are, and includes also creating agency. So what we mean by that is you know putting the practical resources in people's hands to be able to put that knowledge to use. So I know that, okay, for instance, this year's theme, we're talking about the right to freedom of expression online. So you can carry a camera. So let me just paint this picture now. Enlightenment is taking your camera and recording and saying, hey, Do you know you have the right to freedom of expression? The Nigerian Constitution provides in section 40 something or 30 something that you have the right to freedom of expression, and that this right is not to be unjustly infringed upon or restricted. That is enlightenment. But street law goes beyond that. So, okay, street law now is you have this right, and should this right be infringed upon, here is what you can do. You can reach out to the police, you can reach out to this local legal aid provider and make your complaint. You can reach out to the law clinic. We provide this and this and these services. And then you can, to access this help, you can use this link, follow this link to reach out to the law clinic. You can fill this form to make your complaint, probably to a government agency or even to other local legal aid providers, or sharing other ways that they can practically use the knowledge that you have shared with them, and also putting in their hand the resources, the ways to actually use that that knowledge that you have shared with them. So it goes beyond just saying have this knowledge, but also street law also says here is how you use this knowledge. This is where you can use this knowledge. So it makes it it empowers, like Amy said. So I want us to keep that in mind as we develop our content. Don't just aim to say you have the right to freedom of expression, or talk about cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is this, cyberbullying is that, it entails this and that. But then what can someone do? Because at the end of the day, the aim of street law, like we have been emphasizing, is to empower. So if someone who is already in that situation or having that challenge is watching your video, okay, let's say I am the one facing cyberbullying and I did not know what cyberbullying was, but I came across your video and then you explained what cyberbullying means. And then I'm like, oh, wow. So what I've been experiencing is called cyberbullying and it's wrong. But if you stop there, you have not really helped me. So if you now tell me, okay, so if you're experiencing cyberbullying, you can reach out to the police. Here is the complaints mechanism. This is how you fill out the form to make your complaint. These are the important details that you must include in your complaint. Then you have empowered me. So now I don't just know my rights, but then I know that, oh, this is how I can get help. And this is where I can get help. So you see, you have not just enlightened, but you have also empowered me to use that knowledge that you have shared. So I hope that we understand that. Okay, so
that was a perfect example.
Thank you, Amy. So do we have more comments, more questions? And then as well, so I wanted to know, for the law clinics that are present here and for the students that are on this call, have you developed a street law lesson plan before? Okay, so I'm going to call out the participants that are here one after the other. So Ahmad, have you developed a street law lesson plan before?
Good evening once again.
Good evening.
Yes, we have something that we have been using for over time. I met it in view here, and even last time we carried out projects related to StreetLaw. That's what we use, and that's what we have been using. So we just develop it. We have the and already we just develop it to extend it to cover some areas, but it just like just a skeleton that we just flesh up whenever we need to use it. Thank you.
Okay, so you have some sort of framework or a draft that you use every time that you have a
Yes.
street law outreach. Okay,
Yes.
so thank you very much, Ahmad. Blessing Anu Uluwako. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And again, please, if I call on you and you're not able to unmute yourself and speak, you can always make use of the chat box, because I understand that since this is virtual, we are all at different places, and you may be in an environment where you're not able to speak, so that's fine. Okay, Aisha, have you developed a street law lesson plan before?
Yeah, here at the law clinic ABU Zaria, we kind of have like it's like more of a pamphlet that it's made in English. Yeah, it's made in English, and it's also made in Hausa, since Kaduna is one of the northern states of Nigeria. So, and it's the content its content is like in a cartoonish form, with like little notes all over it. It's colorful, actually. It's beautiful. So that's how we usually do it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Aisha. All right. So
Can I just ask a follow-up question? So that pamphlet was created some years ago and you just use the same one every time?
No, not actually. Yearly we sort of like, it's more like of a skeleton, but yearly we adjust
Perfect.
some things a bit.
Perfect. Thank you.
okay. All right. Interesting responses so far. So I wanted to sort of like gauge where what the students' ideas are on what a street law lesson plan is, because I think it's important that you all understand that. It would also help in thinking more practically about how to bring your ideas to life and how to structure whatever message you want to pass across your in your content, because like we mentioned at the start, this virtual street law is more like a virtual adaptation of traditional or physical street law. So in as much as the virtual space has its own features and is different from what you have physically, the elements of street law and the components of your lesson plan should also be reflected in your educational street law videos as well. So and I don't know how many students have also checked out the resources that we have on the website. We have uploaded street law manuals we have uploaded street law manuals from other street law programs that we've had over the years on the website, so that it's sort of like serve as a guide. But then let me just briefly run through it. So now, what do you do before a street law program? Then this would lead us to how you develop your street law lesson plan and the things that should be in that lesson plan. So first of all, if you're embarking on street law outreach, the first thing that you want to do is to choose the topic and what you want to teach. So let's say, for instance, you want to teach on rights upon arrest. Rights upon arrest. Okay, so you want to teach on rights upon arrest. That would be your topic now. And then what specifically you want to cover. What would be the scope of the rights upon arrest that you want to talk about? So you may want to talk about what specifically those rights are. You may want to also cover situations and scenarios that would amount to violations of those rights, and then remedies for the violations, and then how to access remedies for those violations. So you choose the topic and what you want to teach. So you understand, and that entails also understanding the core issues or the problems that you want to address, because that is what will really help you come up with the topic you want to discuss. And then you must understand your target audience. So you have identified that in your community, the issue of unlawful arrest is very prevalent. So, okay, what set of persons does this issue affect the most? Oh, it's often youths between the ages of 18 to 25, the youths, and then what's youths specifically, you know. So if you look at it closely again, you would see that okay, so it's usually the youths, the out of school youths that are most affected by this challenge. Okay, so now you understand your target audience and people that you want to target with your street law outreach. So now this would help you also as you go on how to develop your content. Then okay, you have identified these people. You know what the problem is now. You have identified this. So what is the expected outcome? You want to help them to do what exactly? Okay, so you now sit down and you think to yourself, okay, I want to teach, I want to enlighten them on their rights upon arrest, but not just their rights upon arrest. I want that at the end of this this street law outreach, the participants or people that we reach out to should be able to understand how what would constitute an infringement of their rights and what they can do about it. So now you can now say outcome one, that participants understand what maybe the concept of rights is, even because some people may not understand what do you mean by rights. So they understand the concept of rights, they know what their rights, the rights upon arrest are, and then they know what would amount to an infringement of those rights. And then participants also know the remedies and how to access the remedies if their rights, how and where to access the remedies if those rights are infringed upon. Then now you can now start planning your activities, because another very strong component of street law is that street law is interactive. Street law encourages interactive teaching methodology. So you don't just go and speak at your audience. You need to be able to get feedback, because you know that for most people, in fact, everybody on this call is past the teenage age, or perhaps still a teenager. And you know how teenagers can be. So imagine when you were a teenager and your mom just goes, I don't know what your problem is. And your mom is just talking. And in your mind, you know that she's not addressing the problem. You know that what she's saying is completely different from what is in your mind. But then sometimes you just wish that, your parents would ask you, why did you do this? Or what is the thought process that informed this decision that you took, before they now go ahead to give you advice, and yes, make whatever other inputs that they may have. So it's similar like that. If you go and you start talking at the people without also engaging them to understand their problem, then at the end of the day, you may not really address the problem, because as much as you may want to understand those people, you're not in their shoes. So the only way to be able to help them is first to understand them. And that is what activities help you do. Activities also help you to drive home the point as well, because your activities could also include like role plays, dramatization as well, that helps the people to understand better. So now you've thought of your activities, and I said two major things the activities are usually pointed at is better understanding the needs of the people and their challenges, their unique challenges. And then secondly, also helping to drive home the points and aid better understanding of what it is that you're teaching. Then you can now decide to select your location for the street law outreach. So now moving on to the street law lesson plan. I know I tend to get a bit detailed when I'm explaining. So I'll just quickly go over what your lesson plan should contain. So now all of these things that I have mentioned are still what would reflect in your street law lesson plan, but under different headings. So in your street law lesson plan, have your topic. So for instance, like I said earlier, the topic right upon arrest. Then the content is those key things that you'll be addressing under that topic. And then the outcome. So the outcome, like I said, is what do you want to achieve at the end of the street law program. So participants should be able to do this, participants should understand this, all of those are your outcome. Then who is your target audience? What is the location? And what language would you be communicating your street law lesson in? And then you have also another part that speaks to the exercises and the activities that you will be carrying out during the street law outreach. Then you also have the resources. What resources would you be using to help people better understand? So I think it was Aisha, right, that mentioned that there is like a pamphlet that they have at their law clinic that has like cartoon and yeah, that it has like cartoon images on it and little text. So yes, those can serve as part of your resources. Those printed comic illustrations, they form part of the resources, but the printed comic illustrations and other similar materials on their own do not constitute the street law lesson plan. Then you now also include your facilitators. So I hope that I've been able to communicate the basic components of what street law entails and what your street law lesson plan should look like.
Can I ask one question?
Sure.
So I would like to know, is there anything that we can do to help you in this process? Is there anything? I know PBA and the team and NULAI have posted a ton of information online that answers probably every question you could think of. But is there something else that we could, do or post or that would help you in putting together your materials? I don't see that anyone has anything now, but if as you're progressing, sometimes things will occur to you as you start to work on this project. But if you think of anything, certainly if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know.
All right. So I think in the absence of any questions from the students, okay, Mr. Emmanuel. Okay. So I
Can we
was
hear me?
going to,
Can we hear me?
yes, yes, yes.
Awesome. Just a moment. Let me on my video. Okay. Nice to meet you once again, Amy and Phoebe. Great work we've been doing. Yeah. I just needed to just drop this so that the students, as they prepare their videos, they can just pay attention to these three key areas in developing their content. Now, remember, like Amy and Phoebe had shared earlier, you pay attention to be aware that you are teaching people on how to express their rights, right? And you're not practicing law. That should be captured, and and other things which was talked about. I think Amy talked about something that I needed to reference. Just a moment. Yeah. So, what information do you want the community members to know at the end of your activity? Remembering that in creating your content, don't be carried away by trying to be funny or trying to be dramatic or all of that. You're ensuring that you want to create agency at the end of the video. So pay attention to these three key things. Number one is the hook. Right. Somebody talked about can they use two different methods? You can use as many as you can, like is allowed in the competition. But remember that you obey these three laws. Number one, the hook. Ensure that you have the hook. And what the hook is to help you do is that is the catcher. It's what to catch the people to be able to sit through your 15 minutes video. So whatever concept you're doing, know that your hook is supposed to get them to follow through till the end. Your hook itself is not the lesson. So whether you're being dramatic about it, whatever you're doing, just know that it's a hook, is a bait, right? When you've done that, then your core content delivery. You choose a strategy for with which you will deliver your content, your core content, which, like Amy said, keep your eyes on the ball, and that is to convey convey a learning based on the theme freedom of expression, freedom of expression online. You have your eyes on that, and now in whatever format you choose to use, you deliver your content, and then finally is your call to action which is where you're creating agency. Number one, you're letting them know how they can get help, where they can get help, and then also telling them, calling them intentionally to like, comment, to share with friends, to share, be specific. People don't always know what to do. People do what they are told to do. So that's why you notice in the call when you say, "Oh, somebody should say something." Amy rightly said, nobody says anything. But when you call out a name or you call out and say, "Do this," then they are most likely to do that. So pay attention to your hook. Keep your hook brief and catchy. Once you do your hook opener, ask questions. Follow with questions. Those questions are to create curiosity. Oh, okay. So it's guiding them to know what to pay attention to through the video. And then the core content where you now begin to teach them the basic things they need to know in expressing their rights. And then your call to action where they can get help, how they can get help, and then what they are supposed to do with your video to ensure that it goes beyond just the person who has watched. You get more people to also watch and connect what you've done. So whatever format you're taking, whether you're telling a story, whether you're acting of short skits, whether you're doing a film, whether you're doing a debate, whether it's a talk show. But I will also recommend you can actually do a combination because many times dramatic hooks actually they do the trick. Dramatic hooks usually do the trick, but to ensure that you keep your eyes on the ball to ensure that by the time you are done, the people, a sense of agency has been created through them sitting down to do that. Thank you. That's what I just needed to point out. So we remember we're doing the hook, the call content, and then the call to action. Thank you. If there are any questions also, you can feel free to just drop them all of that, or we'll continue this conversation. Thank you. Once again, nice to meet you, Amy. Nice to meet you, Phoebe. Well done.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for those useful tips. And if the students think about it too, so this also speaks to how you can convert your street law lesson plan into a digital advocacy video. So for instance, we said, what do you want to achieve? So Mr. Emmanuel mentioned the call to actions. So your call to actions helps you address that. So, so once again, thank you very much, Mr. Emmanuel, for those helpful tips.
Thank you, Phoebe.
Okay, so we are already a little behind time. This meeting was scheduled to come to an end at 3:30 p.m. Nigerian time. So at this point, I would like to say thank you so much to the students that joined in for today's info session. So before we bring the program to an end, I wanted to note that there are some law clinics that they did not fill out the correct form. So anyone from Bayes University, Philomath, APSU, or ABU Law Clinic here, kindly go back to the email thread that you have receiving from me and then use the correct link to enter your details. Just these 4 law clinics: Bayes, Philomath, APSU, and ABU. So that brings us to the end of today's info session officially. But before we close out, I would like everyone